It's 1:30. I'd like to call the meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission for March 20th, 2023 to order. We'll do roll call. We'll go to Commissioner Barnell,
Present.
Commissioner Littlefield,
Present.
Commissioner Hale,
Here, sir.
Commissioner Schuline is not available, Commissioner Wynn is not available, Commissioner George is not available, and we'll go to Commissioner Cornett.
Here.
Very good. We do have a quorum. Do I have a motion concerning the minutes of February 20th, 2023?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Varnell to approve. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Hale. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Varnell, seconded by Commissioner Hale. We're ready to vote, maybe. Do you have it up for vote? You do. Okay, well, let me see what I'm doing wrong here. Let me hit a refresh. There it is. I got it now. Okay. No, yay. I'm in now.
Yeah.
Item has approved. Would all in favor? Reports from Traffic Management Division in Municipal Counselor's Office. Sir?
All right. I want to highlight a few things that are in our report for this month. At the last meeting, there was a question raised during discussions on the John Rex Elementary all-way stop control request. And one of the questions was asked whether the use of a temporary stop control could be used over at Sheridan and Dewey and at Walker in California. Following the meeting, we did some research in the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices and found where the portable or part-time use of stop control is not allowable except in case of an emergency or for temporary traffic control purposes. And by temporary traffic control purposes, it means within a work zone. So since we verified that our understanding of this section, which would basically be to prohibit the part-time use of stop control, verified that with Matthew Zeller, who's with the Federal Highway Administration Office of Operations, and he confirmed our assessment. So that is the answer to that question. And another question came up whether school crossing guards could stop traffic. And what we did to answer this question is we contacted Francine Thomas with the police department, and we went through the crossing guard training course. And the one thing that was emphasized by Mrs. Thomas to us is that crossing guards can, in fact, stop traffic. They can interrupt the flow of traffic, but they cannot direct traffic. So they can't require you to turn or do anything else like that. They are limited to basically finding a gap in traffic, going out in the intersection. They'll be attired with a safety vest, and they'll have a stop paddle, and they're allowed to stop and hold traffic to allow pedestrians to cross. But that's the limit of their involvement. And beyond that, you've got our standard report on stops, on yields and parking controls handled administratively. If you got any questions, happy to answer them.
Okay, Counselor, anything?
I would just second the finding of staff that both state law and city ordinance require us to abide by the MUTCD, and that the provisions of the MUTCD just didn't contemplate this type of use. That was my finding. So,
Okay, well, thank you for your help on that.
Otherwise, I don't have anything else.
All right. Thanks for your help on that, guys. So there's no questions or comments from us on that? Okay. There's no item in the consent docket, so we'll go to item 5, items for individual consideration. Janie Conkle, consider a speed limit on North Mustang Road between West Britton Road and West Hefner Road from 50 miles per hour to 40 miles per hour. Do we have somebody here to speak on that item?
I've been in communication with Ms. Conkle earlier today, and she is not able to attend the meeting, but she would like for the item to be heard today.
Okay, thank you very much. So So we do not have anybody speak on this item. All right, staff, do you have your input?
Okay, you've got our comments before you. The request is to reduce the speed on the mile of Mustang Road between Hefner and Britton from 50 to 40. To the south of Britton Road, it's Mustang Road is posted 50. To the north of Hefner Road, it's posted 30, where it goes into a predominantly residential area. The area between Hefner and Britton has been steadily increasing in development. The aerial photograph that's up on the screen before you, I mean, you can see that to the west of Mustang Road and on the north side of Britton Road, you can see there's new development that's still ongoing. In this particular case, the speed limit reduction that's being requested is somewhat representative of what we discovered when we were doing our on-site speed surveys. The requested 40-mile-an-hour limit kind of correlates with our observed 50th percentile speed, which came up at 38 miles per hour, and our 85th percentile speed was 45. Reducing the speed limit from 50 to 40 will make it less than a 10 mile an hour. We'll put the speed difference on Mustang Road to north and south of Hefner Road within 10 miles of each other. Currently, they're 20 miles apart, so that is probably something that was missed in years past, but this will address that situation. I mean, the credible speed study that we performed using the Bella Light method suggested maybe use of a 45-mile-an-hour limit, but that would still put us out of more than 10 miles an hour different between, as you cross Hefner Road. So at this point in time, happy to answer any questions you might have on the application.
So just to be clear, the city's recommending a 45 mile an hour.
We didn't make a recommendation to that effect. When we ran the Bella Light methodology on it, it suggested that you could consider using a speed limit of 43. Of course, it was developed based on a metric system, but it would suggest a 45. 45 would probably be appropriate there, but changing it to 40 will make your speed differential across Hefner Road within 10 miles an hour, which puts you more in line with state law. And the one thing that needs to be considered there is because at some point in time, say, if the city was to change the type of traffic control at Hefner and Mustang to like signalized control, if you were to be continuing straight through that intersection on Mustang Road, you'd have a 20-mile-an-hour differential in front of you. This will put it more in line with state law, which requires the speeds to be stepped down in increments no greater than 10 miles an hour. Like I said, the other study, the most recent methodology that's come out talks about using the observed 50th percentile speed as being more appropriate in like an urbanized setting when determining speed limits, and our observed 50th percentile speed is running at 38, which is kind of surprising considering that this section of Mustang Road is posted at 50.
All right. Do we have a motion concerning item 5A?
I move to reduce the speed limit from 50 to 45 miles an hour.
Counselor, can we have a motion that is not part of the agenda item like that?
So what you can do is just do a motion to amend the original motion to 45 miles per hour, the
Okay.
reduction, and then if that's approved, then we can vote on that.
Okay. So before we get a motion to go to 45, we have to do a motion to change the item for consideration?
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
Then I'm going to make a motion to, what he just said,
Amend the
the
motion.
motion before us.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Varnell to amend item 5A to make the speed limit change from 50 miles per hour to 45 miles per hour.
I'll second that.
And we have a second by Commissioner Hale. Okay, any talk on this? Well, I'd just like to throw out there, when we look at the requirement of going by 10 mile per hour increments, 40 is the right number. And when you look at the Bella Light, 38 miles per hour is the 50, 43 is the 85, which is real close to 42, which would have been 40. So I would say 40 would be
And I look at the areas up around where I live, at corner of Hefner and MacArthur, basically, and there's a lot of Hefner Road. We've switched 3 times since I've been on this commission in 4 or 5 years, between 40 and 45, and 45, in my opinion, in that area where I live, again, makes a lot of sense. I've driven this road a lot, and I feel like it's a lot like Hefner Road where I live. I think that 45 mile an hour limit is more consistent on what it feels like. I'm concerned of going from 50 to 40 based on the police aspect of it, and a lot more tickets being written. Because I know what the study said, but I've also driven that road enough to know that the psychology of driving is going to lend somebody to go a lot more
Okay.
than the 40.
Anybody else have comments on the motion to change the agenda item? Okay, we have a motion to change the agenda item 5A to 45 miles per hour by Commissioner Varnell, seconded by Hale. Can we have your votes, please? Oral vote. Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
Commissioner Littlefield?
Yay.
Okay. Yay. Okay. All right, so the motion to change the item, and now can I have a motion concerning item 5A?
Motion to approve the amended motion. How's that?
Right, very good. And
Perfect.
do we have a second on that? Second. Second by Commissioner Hale, again. Okay, any talk on it again? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5A, the amended 5A, from Commissioner Varnell, and seconded by Commissioner Hale. Your votes, please. Is that it right there? Okay, yep. Item has been approved. All in favor? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we go on now to item 5B. Barbara Neal, traffic signal at Crystal Gardens Place in Southwest 119th Street. Is there anybody here to speak on this item? I have a note on the sheet. Sorry, ma'am? Yeah, she's not here, and is not asking for it to be pushed on and wants to have the commission vote based on the report. Okay? Anybody else out there that want to speak on item 5B? Okay, staff, you have input?
All right, you got our comments before you. When we reviewed this intersection with respect to the 9 signal warrants in the manual and uniform control devices, this particular location does not satisfy any of the criteria. There aren't any decision site distance conditions or any other mitigating circumstances which would suggest that this particular intersection requires signalization to operate safely. One thing we did notice when we were doing our on-site reviews was that there is a driveway, a private driveway on the north side of 119th Street, generally opposite Crystal Gardens Place. And that driveway, because it would fall within the limits of the intersection, would also require a separate signal. And because it is a two-way driveway and lines up only with the northbound or the outbound lane on Crystal Gardens Place, that phase would have to be operated separately. So it'd be it would make for an odd signal arrangement. And the only other alternative to that was that driveway would have to be run basically across the frontage of the property where it's currently located and tie into a driveway that's along the west side, which is about 100 feet to the west. Other than that, those are pretty much major comments. And like I said, this particular intersection does not meet any of the warrants for considering use of signal control.
All right, do we have a motion concerning item 5B?
Motion to disapprove.
Motion to disapprove by Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Littlefield. Disapprove. Do we have any talk on item 5B? Yes, sir.
I'm just curious how a residential development like that happens if the driveway already exists across the street from it and vice versa. How does something like that get missed in the planning phases of these developments? Maybe there's not an answer to that, but it's certainly a comment that I want to make.
Well, there's nothing that prohibits, say the addition went in first, there's nothing that would prohibit someone from putting a driveway in opposite a street like this. Because from a development standpoint, it does not affect the, how this particular intersection is controlled. Because right now, Southwest 119th Street has the right-of-way. But a lot of things like this, like say the addition went in first and then the house across the street went in second, that house going in wouldn't be subject to any kind of significant reviews by Public Works because by right, if the only access they have is to the arterial, they can have a driveway onto it. And the development center staff would just review it as a building permit application, and they wouldn't be reviewing it with respect to like, is this opposite a road? Is it not opposite? That sort of thing. So, there's any number of ways.
All right, do we have any other talk on item 5B? We have a motion to disapprove item 5B from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Littlefield. Time for votes.
We are voting disapprove.
It's not popping up for me, so I yay. Okay, the motion has passed, the item is disapproved. Okay. We go on to 5C, Patrick Duffy, interim superintendent, middle school principal for John Rex Charter School. To consider all-way stop control at South Walker Avenue and West California Avenue. Sir? Name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Okay, name is Patrick Duffy, address is 501 Southwest 159th Terrace in Oklahoma City. Same thing, I came to you all last month. I appreciate the consideration last month. I know this part was postponed to this month. Going back to the stop signs there at California and Dewey, knowing and looking at the research that was done there, we know that the traffic that moves on California is limited, mainly because California does not go through all the way, and we've redirected traffic to go around the school in a clockwise motion there. So we've tried to eliminate as much of that traffic going on California. But again, the intersection is still a dangerous intersection, certainly for us crossing back and forth and moving students back and forth across the ground. So we'd like your consideration of putting stop signs there for the time until the stoplights that were approved last month are able to go in.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Anybody else wanted to speak on item 5C? Staff, your input?
All right, as noted, this item was continued from the last meeting at the request of Commissioner Littlefield. The location does not meet any warrants for the specific use of all-way stop control, and as Mr. Duffy had mentioned, the intersection was approved for the use of a traffic signal at the Commission's meeting on February 20th. And I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have on the application.
I'd like to ask the counselor, is it okay if we talk about the item before we get a motion? Or do we need to have the motion first? There's a couple of things I'd like to just talk about.
Yeah, I think you bring the motion
Okay?
in order to have the discussion.
Okay, very good, sir. All right, can I have a motion for 5C?
I'd like to motion for approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cornett. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second came from Commissioner
Varnell.
Varnell. Okay, do we have talk on this item? Do you have something? You want me to talk?
Go ahead and start.
Well, I asked the staff about school zones being 25 miles an hour. And, you know, one of the things that we talk about is there's a lot of traffic, it's going pretty fast. And I asked, can we have a school zone slower than 25? And the answer is yes. And so I think in place of an all-way stop, we just put a 15 mile an hour school zone there, because the lights are only activated 45 minutes or something, but the flow will still go. And that'll allow the crossing guards that we're getting, or already out there, one of them is already out there, but the other one, to be able to get out into traffic safer, because now it's a 15 mile an hour instead of 25. And so we get to do close to what we need for the next 3, 4, 5 years until stoplights are put in, by putting a 15 mile an hour speed limit for 45 minutes in the morning and 45 minutes at night, only during school time, compared to always stop all the time. And I think that's a possible fix to this problem.
I think one of the issues that I have with that is that we talk a lot about speed limits don't mean a dang thing. It is the way that the street is set up and how somebody feels comfortable. They're used to 25 mile per hour speed limits in school zones, and so having a 15 mile per hour would take somebody out of their normal, how they approach that speed limit. I've been thinking a lot about this, obviously. I thought a lot about it before our last meeting, and what it really comes down to for me is what is the value that this body brings to our community. And to me, we have the opportunity to provide safety, not just the opportunity to provide a driving condition that's faster and somebody taking an extra 10 seconds out of their day to get from one place to another. To me, it's worth it to make sure that 800 students are safe. Until we can fix the overarching problem, and I am happy to work with City Council, I'm sure several of you are, but until we fix the issue of having unfunded projects that will not even make it till the next GEO bond, which means they won't even be funded for, I mean, it could be 10 years, 15 years before these lights actually go in. That's 10,000, 12,000 students going through that school over that amount of time that will not have the capability to move freely from one side of the street to the other at the points where they are asked to do that safely. I know that, I mean, it's going to take all 5 of us voting yes on this today to actually get it passed, because we don't have everybody here. So I'm not really hopeful in that. But I think that we have the ability to make this a position of safety for our community, not just looking at the benefit to our drivers. I think we can make this a benefit to all who are in our community, especially people who are going to this school, parents and children, and the drivers that interact with those intersections on a daily basis. I understand why it makes people uncomfortable. I think that knowing that it's a temporary situation and those stop signs will be gone as soon as the stoplights get put in, I am fine with that. I am fine. I use both of those intersections multiple times every day. I am fine stopping there as long as it means that somebody can be safe when they are on their way to or from school.
Okay, yes, sir?
My only heartburn is a situation where we're going to have 24/7 stop during rush hour, coming into the city, leaving out, summer. This will be affecting every driver that goes up and down Walker. And I understand, and I don't want to put anybody's safety on the line here, but what I'm getting at is this is year-round, 24/7. I do like the idea of a lowered speed limit with a crosswalk guard. I think with the kids involved, it would help to have a crosswalk guard there. Even with it, I've seen that happen even with the lights, just to make sure the kids are come across traffic safely. I'm just, like I say, that's my biggest heartburn is the 24/7, 365 days out of the year that everyone that comes to that intersection is going to have to stop now, whether school's in session or not. And I'm not sure that that stop sign is going to achieve so much more than a person watching traffic and the controls to safely move children across the street.
And sir, if I'm right, if you could please, there is a crossing guard at the California now, correct?
No, the one that's with the city is at Dewey and Sheridan. Yes.
And that's from your school, one of your teachers, right?
That's one of my teachers, yes. We had to shuffle her schedule so she could do two jobs. the
Okay, so
two
she's
jobs.
up at the Sheridan and...
Yes, and Dewey.
And you feel that that's the worst intersection of the two? Is that why you have it there?
Honestly, that's where elementary students cross, but people are more aware of that because they're closer to the elementary than they are at the middle school where the McAlpine Center is. So, that does not give off the appearance of a middle school. So the expectation, you don't see that as much. And the traffic flows much faster going between Reno and Sheridan than it does coming down east and west on Sheridan. So that is why that is of utmost importance to us, is to find a way to help on that traffic on California and Walker. And if I can, I will say that we are starting summer school this year, so there will be about 5 weeks in the summer that there will be kids going back and forth. Again, it's not all the time, but just we haven't had that before, but we will have that as well. So there will be kids traveling back and forth. Not the same numbers that we do, but there will be traffic.
Right, and you are working with the city to get a second.
Yeah,
Crossing
so
guard.
we're told that there are available open spaces there or non-assigned crossing guards that we could have specifically assigned there, but then we would need to find someone that would either apply or willing to go in and take that on and have that job.
Okay, but that hasn't moved yet?
No.
You just know that that's available?
It's available, yeah, we just talked about
Okay.
that before the meeting.
Okay, just want to make sure I had it straight.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, thank you.
Where is the middle school on this picture? Directly south? All right.
Yep. The red bricks where California used to be, there's a stop sign highlighted yellow on the corner of California, southeast corner of California and Walker. It's the old McAlpine Center where the Arts Council was.
Oh, you just took away my picture. So not directly south,
No,
southeast.
it's southeast corner off of it's off the
The southeast
southwest corner of the elementary school. So we're on the southeast corner of California and Walker.
It's southeast. It's,
There you go.
It's southeast. Okay. So when I drove by today
Yeah.
at 12:20, I saw 50 or 60 kids out in the park. They did not have to cross this intersection to get to
No,
that
they
park.
did not. So those are middle school kids. They just came straight out. They walk along
Just walk
the
straight
sidewalk
north.
up there, and then they come around. So
Okay.
they did not. No. No. The main flow of student and parents coming across the road are drop off and dismissal are the main times. I crossed it just before this with 3 students to go pick up Amazon packages. You just wait until the lights are red at both ends, because it is not safe for us to cross that, because it's not evident that people are going to, just because it's marked really well, it's not evident that people are going to try to cross that. So traffic does not stop, including a police officer that just kept going, so won't say anything. But we were standing there and we just hang on and went on through, and we were not going to put our feet out into that crosswalk there. So.
Well, yeah, and crosswalks and people, it's a funny thing, and please make sure I'm right, Counselor and Captain. Cars have to stop for people in the crosswalk, not wanting to go in the crosswalk. Am I correct?
Sure.
So you do have to put your foot out and
Yeah,
get in
well,
there.
we are not.
Well, no, I know,
That's-
but I'm just saying, that's
Yeah,
the,
that's,
that's the rule.
yeah.
Where I always thought for many
Right.
years, I'm standing at a corner at a crosswalk,
Yes.
people would be expected to stop.
Yes.
And eventually I asked, and I think I asked here one of my first
Yep.
years, and they said, no, you have to be in the crosswalk for them to stop. And that's why the crossing guard gets in the crosswalk.
Right.
Vest, signs, making
Yes.
it very clear there's somebody there, and that stops the traffic.
Yes.
Not technically the guard, it's
Right.
that they're in the crosswalk.
Yeah.
So now that we've had a lot of discussion around all of this. And I know that Mr. Duffy's been in conversation with the planning department as well. Can we, at a minimum, get better signage, especially at this intersection for crosswalks? What we mentioned, like the big yellow, there's a school crosswalk right here, like signs, because there's no signage at all. There are obviously crosswalks, but people are blazing through them. So can we get some signage there sooner rather than later?
Yeah, additional pedestrian crossing signs, yes,
Yes.
that can be added.
Would it be possible to, I know we have some stop signs with the LED lights that flash. If we could get a crosswalk that flashed, which I've not seen those, but I don't know for any reason we couldn't.
Just put some in Plaza District that have their solar-powered flasher pedestrian crossing signs. So I think that's probably what you're referring to.
It is, and if we had that, I would be a lot more comfortable than stopping traffic 24/7.
And I agree with that. I mean, the stop sign was the lowest common, like, possible thing that we could do, but we do not have the structure, the infrastructure necessary within our city government to move that stop light any
Understand.
closer. And it's just, there's a gap between now and
But
when safety can happen. And so we need to do everything possible that we can.
But I believe a
pedestrian-wise.
pedestrian site that was flashing during school hours, I don't think it needs to flash all the time, but during the times to where you do have kids needing to cross into that intersection, I think that might be an option to where.
So tie it into the school zone sign
That you can
for
do-
timing?
Can you time those flashers? I don't think you can.
If something like that was used, it would have to be powered through the school zone flashers.
Right.
The school zone flashers rely on solar power because we don't have a readily available underground electric source to operate those. It could be, I don't know, I've never seen them tied together like that, though.
Well, I think we have, people walk
Well,
through those intersections all the time. It's not a big deal.
And even if it's just like we did with the stop signs that was downtown, you put 5 yellow LEDs and a solar system, and it goes till it runs out. At 2 o'clock in the morning, there's not many people walking. If it runs out, it runs out. But something like that, if you guys could think about that. Now, you would want that at both intersections?
I'll speak on behalf of us. If we could get flashers that if somebody hits a light and that yellow sign that somebody's about to cross lights up,
Well, that's a different one.
we would, anything that would make that more noticeable, we would love that. I know that this is a big ask to try to stop traffic, and I know that it's year-round, and we would love that, but anything that would bring some kind of notice to that. The concern will then be, obviously, we don't just cross the road in the morning and afternoon, but that is where the majority of our traffic is. So it would protect the majority of the flow of traffic back and forth. So yes, it would certainly be helpful.
So what you're asking for is a signage, it's a school crosswalk, and something lit up-ish.
if it lights
can
up
be
even better.
flashing, so people drive up there and just don't look at the lines in the road and go, well, why are there crosswalk? Now I see more, let me slow
We
down.
used to have the stanchions that would be in the middle of the road that would say, like,
State
you'd
law.
have to stop, yeah,
No,
state law.
That's a good one, too.
Well, but we had them for, I don't know,
About
2
3
months.
days? Yeah, it didn't make it through the first weekend.
Oh, they got run over?
Yeah, they got ran over pretty quick. They were,
And so
there was
having.
some pretty small sand piles come back on that, yes.
Yeah, so having more visibility in any capacity, if we are not moving forward with stop signs, we have to make it safer in every other possible way that we can until those lights get installed. But I also think that we need to, as a group, we need to consider talking to city council about moving unfunded projects into
Well, that's where I say that
consideration.
it's the council person, that if there's an issue that a traffic commissioner feels, or an applicant, you get with the city council person, who then has to either try to motivate the staff on their own, or get the consensus of the counselors to go ahead and motivate the staff or to direct the staff. And of course, it's all ward-specific, so one ward will say, me, and the other 7 will go, me, me, me.
Yeah. Well, maybe JB can reach out to her, but I think we can have a conversation, because there are unfunded projects in all of our wards at this point, where if we kind of motivated our city council to, if we have excess revenue, that this is something that we would like them to consider in moving this up, so that we can actually get some movement on some of these projects that are a little bit more, what we feel need attention a little bit faster than waiting for the next bond issue. Then maybe we can at least get some traction in moving things a little closer than
Yeah,
waiting
well, because
for-
the staff, they have the list,
Yeah.
and they put in their bond request, and it gets put into the bond, and it gets funded. But is the
Sure.
staff has the,
Sure.
does the staff
I'm
have the
saying-
authority to reallocate funds that have been already put out? Or does it take the city council to tell them to reallocate?
No.
Or is it because it's a bond,
Because
it's
it's a-
stuck to the
it's stuck.
wording?
Yes. So what I'm asking is, if we have excess revenue, so
Okay.
we are being conservative in what we think we're going to spend this year, if we have excess revenue at the end of the fiscal year, which we have for the past several years, then can we say, we want to earmark 1 million of that to go to our unfunded projects that, like, we can take care of, not we can, but that we have already approved, they're just sitting and waiting, rather than waiting for the next bond issue. But I think that would take coordination with all of our city council people and
Oh, yeah.
to make that a
Yeah, because
priority.
the other 50 organizations
Sure,
want
yeah.
their million.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep. But it's worth
Oh, of course.
thinking
Yes, ma'am.
and talking about, so that we can get out of the system of, like, what we had to do is apply for a stop sign whenever that is not at all the best possible scenario for that. It's the
That's all there
cheapest
is,
and
yeah.
free. I mean, it's like, it's cheapest and is available right now. And so if we want a structure that is better for what we know to be true, which would be a stoplight at both of those intersections, we agree. We can't wait 15 years.
No, very good. Yes, sir.
If the posted speed limit is what there now, 25? So you mentioned that you'd done some research and that we could go lower, we could go to 15.
Yes, staff said we could.
Would that include a flashing school zone beacon?
Which there is one there now
There is one there now.
that says 25. And all that does, from my understanding,
Takes it,
is it identifies to the driver, one, there's a school zone, and two, that's when fines double, I believe. Am I right?
Well, it's a higher speed or higher fine for speeding within a school zone. But in this particular case, walkers posted 30 miles an hour. And when the school zone flashers are activated, they just draw drivers' attention to the fact that, it reads school zone speed limit 25 when flashing.
So the speed limit's 30 there.
Right.
Oh, I didn't know that. I
And then
thought
it
it was
drops to 25 because 25 has been,
I didn't
the
study it,
standard
I didn't study it in depth to see that. I think a flashing school zone sign and a crossing guard are the two things that I, as a driver going through a school zone, I'm going to see before I'm ever going to pay attention to a stop sign. The item is asking for a stop sign, and I know that I said it last month, I'll say it again. I'm really concerned that that would produce a false sense of security for anybody walking into that crosswalk. I really like the way their discussion is going with lowering the speed limit, and I really like where their discussion is going with school zone specific crosswalk signage. Would be something that I, as a driver, would notice long before I would notice something else. And thank you, Stuart, for looking into those two questions. That was interesting. My hope was a crossing guard could have the authority to be in control of, managing a pylon sign with 4 stop signs on it in the middle of the street. That would have been wonderful if something like that could have happened. But, what would it take to change this item to lowering the speed limit? And I guess the crosswalk signs would just strictly be administrative?
Yeah, warning signs advising drivers that there is a school crossing, those are strictly administrative. To change speed limit in a school zone, that would be a different item.
So we would vote on this item, and if we wanted to consider a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit, then we would ask the staff and ask the applicant to go ahead and put in for it.
Okay.
Is that something you think would help?
Sure.
To slow everybody down another
Yeah.
10 miles an hour?
And at this point, anything that's going to slow people
Well, of
down would
course.
help. Yes.
Well, and
Yes.
one of the concerns that I have is if we say, here's a school zone that we're going to bring to 15 miles an hour, the other 100 school zones are going to want 15 miles an hour also. But the answer is they're not in the urban center
Yeah.
like this.
Right.
That's but I mean, we just have to know the answer because the question's going to come. They're out there, 40-mile-an-hour speed limit goes down to 25, and they want a 15. Well, they're not in this here with that amount of traffic in such a small area. That's just something I just want to throw out there, that's a concern that I had. So we would vote on this item. Staff already has a tasker to see about the signs and see what they can come up with, get creative and do something good for that.
Yeah, I think
And-
Stuart, were you working with, who were you working with, Mr. Duffy? Justin?
Quick sitting down.
Sorry, no.
It's all right.
you just left-
Justin Henry was
Yeah,
who I was
okay.
working with. Yes.
He was working with Justin on some of those improvements, and so you probably just, at some point, if you can coordinate with Justin on what can be done
Yeah.
within the scope of this versus like if planning needs to take over, whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about at this point. But you can work with Justin.
Justin offered his help.
He has
Yes.
offered
And
help.
so-
He has given his recommendations. If there's any way that you can connect with him just to make sure that we're all on the same page before we move forward with
That's a good
things.
point.
Not all of us,
No,
but I
no.
mean, make sure that city staff isn't.
At the last meeting, Justin
Yes,
offered
yes.
to
Yes,
I don't want-
he was
to
great.
talk, and
Yeah.
so we just want him to be involved.
I want to make sure that both parties are privy to what's going on.
Okay?
And if this item is denied,
Yes.
and within 30 days or so, if a new item could come before us lowering the speed limit, in the interim, you could secure a crossing guard there, could you not?
If we could get an applicant, then yes, that's what we would need is an applicant, because I think it said they were unassigned, so if we can get an applicant, then we could have them assigned to that area.
So just to make sure I'm clear, that if we do turn down the applicant's request, that administratively, we can get pedestrian signs up, and in conjunction with that, we would have a crossing guard. And I just want to make sure I'm clear that if we do turn this down, that we will still be able to do something for you.
That'd be wonderful.
Okay?
And,
Yeah,
and,
so-
and that would be for both intersections that we'd want that signage. if we
Yes,
could.
because it's a common school zone.
Right, but I meant even over on Dewey in Sheridan.
Yes,
We would
you have to
like-
post them all the same.
No, not the speed limit thing, I'm sorry.
You would need to post the speed limit all.
Oh, no, I know that.
Consistent.
I'm saying these signs that we're asking for, that say school crosswalk, that have LED lights or something.
Oh, just the pedestrian crossing signs, I don't know about
Correct.
LED enhanced, but
Well, if
pedestrian
you
crossing
can.
signs can be
Right.
put in.
But we'd also want them at Sheridan and Dewey,
Yeah.
because it's
That
the
can be
same
added,
problem, right? You
That'd be
want them-
great. Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Now, is your guard going to be helping people cross Sheridan, or are they still just crossing people on Dewey?
Right now, we just came back today. I don't know, she had not been trained, so wasn't feeling comfortable at going out and stopping traffic before spring break on Sheridan. So I have not seen Ms. Stevenson today to ask
Okay.
her about her training
Yeah,
and
I-
where she is crossing.
I think she took training the same day we did. She just took it about an hour later.
Okay, yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with that right before spring break. So I can't answer the question, what I'm telling you. Sorry.
Okay, but the signage that we're talking about would go at both intersections,
It can, yep.
okay? And then, okay. Any other talk on this item? Yes, Counselor, please help.
I just wanted to clarify majority versus quorum.
Correct.
So we do have a quorum here today, and this particular motion requires a majority vote. So for purpose of the majority, it's only going to be of the members present.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
That was one thing I was going to ask.
Yeah, I just
It's-
wanted to-
It's of the members present for a vote, but you got to have a quorum of all assigned members. Or like here, there's 9, we have to have 5.
Correct. So we have a quorum, so for purposes of today's meeting, a majority would be 3.
Majority vote. Okay? Thank you for clarifying that. Okay. Any other talk on this item? We have a motion to approve item 5C from Commissioner Cornett, seconded by Commissioner Varnell. And I think we're ready for a vote. It's not coming up on me, so it's a nay for me. Probably because I'm on the wrong thing. There we go. Okay, item has not passed. It's been disapproved. Okay? So you're going to talk with staff about a speed zone change to 15. And then we'll talk about that when it comes up as a possible solution, okay?
I like seeing you, this is great, so I'm just gonna start hanging out here. This is good.
Oh, jeez.
Quiet, it's good lighting, I'm good.
Oh, jeez. Okay, now we go on to 5D, Caleb Morgan, PE, Johnson and Associates, reserve parking space for the physically disabled on the east side of North Chartel Avenue from approximately 58 feet south to 90 feet south of the south curb line of Northwest 11th Street. Sir, if I can have your name and address, you have up to 5 minutes.
Caleb Morgan, Johnson Associates, 1 East Sheridan. What we have is a redevelopment of a site that is an existing parking lot, and they're proposing townhome apartments at the location. And there is proposed parallel parking on the east side of Chartel, and as part of that, we want to include 1 ADA spot, and that's what we're looking for approval here today, is just for the ADA spot. We appreciate staff's review of this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Anybody else want to speak on item 5D? Okay, staff input, please.
You've got our comments before you. In this particular location, there is already an angle parking lay-by on the west side of Chartel. They're proposing to build parallel parking lay-bys along the east side, and as part of their structured parking, they're including an ADA space, which would be in accordance with requirements under the Americans with Disability Act. So action on the item will be at the discretion of the commission.
Okay, can I have a motion concerning 5D? Motion to approve 5D from Commissioner Hale. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Cornett. Any discussion? Yes, sir.
Quick question. It's, the redevelopment is housing, an apartment,
Right, townhomes.
townhome? Would it have like a central entrance to it, or do you know it's,
I think they're going to have individual entrances. If you look at the site, it shows sidewalks going up, showing individual entrances for different doors.
okay, so it's not like it's one entry point?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And then this is close enough to that intersection where a handicapped individual could participate in crossing the 11th and what is that, North-South Street? Chartel. Okay, thanks. It's clarity I needed. Thank you.
Okay, any other talk on item 5D? We have a motion to approve 5D from Commissioner Hale, seconded by Commissioner Cornett, and I can vote now. I was on the wrong button. Item has passed with all in favor. Okay, we go on now to item 5E. Alyssa Graddick. Sorry about that. all-way stop control at North Westminster Road and East Britain Road. Hi, ma'am, if I could have your name, address, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Okay, my name is Alyssa Graddick. I live at 11450 Shady Oak Lane. I would like to request that the city install an all-way stop at Britain and Westminster to improve the safety. Even though it's rural, it has decent traffic for the area and a very high accident history. I called the dispatch today to just get like an update of the crashes. They had said between July and September that there were 13 crashes at that intersection. And then today, the information that I got was that 10/12 of 22, there was a non-injury accident. 11/21 of 22, there was an injury accident. And then all in the month of February, on the 10th, the 9th, 10th, and 18th, there were injury accidents at that intersection. So I think if there was an all-way stop at that intersection, that the crashes would decrease drastically. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wanted to speak on item 5E? Staff, your input?
All right, you got our comments before you. From a traffic control perspective, the intersection does not meet any of the MUTCD warrants for considering all-way stop control, but the intersection does satisfy the crash experience criteria for using all-way stop control. When we did our records, the records we have access to only go back through 2021, and in the period from 98 through 2021, 2021 is the only year, and it's the first year in which the crash experience would suggest that looking at something other than just two-way stop control would be appropriate. And Ms. Graddick has done additional research with the help of the police department and has got more current crash information than we had available for this meeting, which would suggest that the crash experience is such that considering something like all-way stop control would be appropriate at this time.
Well, I just have a question. What makes that intersection so bad that there's 16 accidents in a year? I mean, it doesn't look any different than anything else. I mean, is there anything that, well, let me ask the staff first. Do you have any, when you guys were out there and, I mean, it doesn't look that bad that there would be that many accidents. It has good sight distance.
Yes, it's got adequate sight distance. You know, the remarkable thing is you can have intersections where you've got less than adequate sight distance and you might have a perfect crash history. I mean, no instances of crashes. And then you can get intersections which are like this and you wouldn't think that there should be any reason why they experience an unusual crash history, but there it happens.
Okay, ma'am, do you have an input on that question?
Say the north and southbound traffic when you're driving east on Britain, you can't really see the cars that are going. Same if you're going north or south. You can, once you get right up on the intersection, you can see them, but before that, like if you stop where the yellow line is and just go, you could hit someone and you wouldn't even see it.
All right, thank you. Okay, do we have a motion concerning item 5E?
Motion for approval?
Motion to approve 5E from Commissioner Varnell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cornett. Any discussion? Okay, we have a motion to approve item 5E from Commissioner Varnell, seconded by Commissioner Cornett. And again, I'm on the wrong button. That's my fault. Here it is. There you go. Okay, item is approved. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, go to item 5F, Timothy W. Johnson, PE, President Johnson and Associates, to consider reserved parking space for the physically disabled on the west side of North Walnut Avenue from approximately 51 feet north to 75 feet north of the north curb line of Northeast 26th Street. Yes, sir. We already have your name and address. You got 5 minutes.
Thank you. This is a small pocket home development, so single-family homes inside an addition, a small addition, kind of a fill-in. And we're proposing parallel parking on the west side of Walnut Avenue, and as part of that, we're proposing a single ADA parallel parking space, and that's what we're looking to get approval for. We appreciate staff working with us on getting everything located correctly, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak on item 5F? Staff?
This case is very much like the one that you just considered over at Chartel and 11th. The applicant's proposing parallel parking laybys, and they are meeting ADA requirements by including a reserved space at the northwest corner of Walnut and Northeast 26th Street. Happy to answer any other questions you might have on the application.
Okay, do we have a motion for 5F?
I'll move.
Motion to
For approval.
approve from Commissioner Cornett. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Hale. Any discussion on 5F? Motion to approve 5F from Commissioner Cornett, second by Commissioner Hale. Time to vote. And item is approved and all in favor. Yes, sir. We go on now to item 6, comments from citizens. We're looking at you, sir. Do you have anything? Do you have anything? No? Okay, very good. ADA corn, I know, I'm teasing. Item 7, reports and other items from traffic commissioners and traffic commission committees. So we'll start with Commissioner Varnell.
None for me, thanks.
Commissioner Littlefield.
I'm just really glad to be here.
Very good. We'll go to Commissioner Cornett so I don't skip her at the end.
So I have been working with Stuart for, I don't know, it feels like 6 months on a few intersections as far as lighting goes. And so I just want to, I guess, bring that here. Some traffic signals have been, they're with a consultant right now for, and I think their proposal was due at the end of January. So I just was going to request a follow-up from you from Public Works just in general, on where we are in the process and when we can look for some relief there, because we've gotten some pretty.
I know we've got a meeting with Kimley Horn later on this week to discuss some corridor timing projects, and if you've got specific locations, you can email them to me, and I will see and I'll be able to look at the list of locations that they're looking at and let you know what they have in mind. But right now they're just trying to scope a meeting where they can determine what our needs are, what the expectations are, so they can get started.
Great, okay. Other than that, thank you all for our conversation earlier and just working on the best possible solution with within the framework that we have. But I encourage all of us to reach out to city council members that we know and try to get some movement to potentially move that funding up a little bit before the GEO bond, if at all possible. Because I think we have a lot of, not just school zones, but we have a lot of people who have come before, and we've even told them it may be 10, 15 years before you get this. And so if we at least put some bugs in some ears, maybe we can get a little bit of movement, a little bit of traction on moving some of those projects into a current calendar year versus punting it for the next GEO bond.
But I would like to add a little bit more to what you were talking about, working with staff. Several times I'm out on the road and I'll see a traffic situation that the lights are not working properly. We all kind of understand, yes, main road, side road activates, or turn signal, turn lane, but then it's supposed to turn off and it's not supposed to come on when there's nobody there and all those kind of things. And there's been several times I've shot a note to him and he sends his people out there and they readjust it because, you don't want to have traffic backed up for half a mile because of a light that just, the sensor's wrong. So as you're talking to people out there, where I get a couple of them is on group Facebook pages for neighborhoods. Somebody will just say, geez, I don't understand why this is like this. And I'd be like, oh, so what's the problem? And okay, now let's do it now, and then it gets fixed. They don't even know that it's wrong or how to fix it. We do. So as you're talking to your people out there, it's a good thing to say. If you see something that just isn't right, like you're talking about flowing lights, in the morning you should be flowing them into the city, in the afternoon getting people out of here. And it should all be timed, and it changes. And that's good stuff, and that's what we need to do, especially as we know, traffic is only going up, not going down, even though we're trying with bikes and we're trying with trolleys and all these things, you know. Yeah, so that's a good point, ma'am. Okay, Commissioner Hill.
Just a couple of questions. ASAP program, do you know approximately how many applicants we've had so far?
About 30. So it's about
And-
the same as it was last meeting.
Okay, and have any of these traffic calming measures been implemented yet?
Not yet. Matter of fact, we have, the biggest question that we constantly get is, because it's a cost-sharing program, is what are we looking at cost-wise? And we do not have definitive costs, but we have a meeting with a vendor that's got a state contract, I believe, that the city can purchase off, and we are meeting with them Wednesday morning. So we're gonna be nailing down prices from them. And since the city will be doing at least the initial installations, especially for things like prefabricated speed humps, we will have very discrete numbers in which to work with. So once they figure it out, settle upon locations, and they get their petitions in place, and I believe we have 2 speed hump applications which are complete enough. We just need the funding information.
Okay, now, once these are installed, and at what point in time will there be some feedback as far as results within that neighborhood? I mean, because I'm real curious, you know, they've got it approved, they've got it funded, but is it really achieving what they wanted? Is it something that the city can live with? Because I've got a couple of neighborhoods that are really interested in participating, but they don't want to blow money on something that's not going to work. They would really like feedback as to what is the most, of the applicants, which ones have been the most effective, whether it be speed bumps, you know, driver feedback, shrinking the size of the lane by paint. I mean, they're just very curious as far as what's out there and what's working.
Right. Well, I was about to say, there are a couple locations where people can go and basically try it before they buy it. I mean, the city of the Village has got a couple streets where they've got speed humps, and they've got one location where they've got a speed hump and a driver's speed feedback sign right beside it. So some residents, if they're wanting to, they could see what they think of them, but as far as feedback, there's not really a mechanism in the program for us to touch bases and say, how did it work? Did it achieve what you think you were wanting it to do? Because we also don't do, we don't do studies in advance to know whether or not they have much in the way of like what we consider like a speeding problem to begin with.
Well, run that by one more time.
We don't conduct any studies in advance. I mean, a neighborhood, if they've got a perceived like speeding problem or issue along that line, they could just apply to participate in the program. There's nothing in the program that says that you need to have, you know, a verified like 85th percentile speed that's running 10 miles an hour over the limit.
So what I think I hear you saying is, there's a neighborhood that the neighborhood people feel that people are doing 35 miles an hour and it's supposed to be 25. So they want to put in some speed humps. And you're asking, is there any data to say in between the speed humps, because we know over the speed hump, it'll slow it down. But then you got 200, 300, 400 feet in between. Now they're doing 40 miles an hour, trying to catch up their time for going slow. Or does slowing them down to 15 miles an hour to go over a speed hump slow them down for that next amount? That's what you're asking, correct?
Basically, what I would do, I mean, whether it be ASAP program, whatever, I would really like to see us do follow-up 6 months later. If we approve something, send an email to whoever requested, did this achieve what you were asking? I mean, to me, it'd be helpful to know if somebody comes up and says, hey, on this street, we've had 17 collisions, we need to stop. To follow up 6 months later, did what you request and what we approved achieve what you were trying to achieve? Just as far as feedback. I mean, moving forward, you know.
So an example would be the one we just approved, the four-way stop. 6 months from now, you either go out there and get some data or you call her and say, is it better? and she's like, no, now we have 20 accidents, then we know that it didn't work.
Well, yeah, I mean, to let us know, not just on that case, but moving forward, that these things we've approved in the past.
Good point.
And the people that requested it have been very happy 6 months later, or a year, whatever.
That's something
timeframe.
that you brought up in the past also,
Well, I
is
hate
you'd like to see.
I hate to beat a dead horse, but
No,
I'd still
you're
like
right.
to get some feedback.
We can do a follow-up with them, because at this point in time, we'll only have a handful of people that will be asking 6 months down the road.
Okay.
Okay, very good point.
I think the testimony of the neighbors in the neighborhoods is going to be really valuable. It's sort of interesting when we have these applications month after month, and there's a staff report, and then there's possibly a petition requirement, or a number of people come forward to speak on an item in support of it, or perhaps even to deny it. It's an interesting study to see what a staff report says and what individuals that live in the actual neighborhood have to say. I find that fascinating, but I'm understanding where staff is coming from, where there's no particular study that's done for a neighborhood to accomplish putting traffic calming measures in. So therefore, there's no real staff mechanism to go back where staff can look and make a determination whether or not those measures have had any positive or negative impact. It's going to be the people that live there. And I'm as fascinated with it, of course, as you are. Hopefully the answer is yes.
Yeah, hopefully it's yes, that it worked, and it's the right thing.
But equally important, if the answer comes back no, we need to know
That those things don't work,
Yeah.
for that reason.
for that location. It may work somewhere else, but
Oh, okay.
if it's not working there, I'd like to know why. So I would like some type of feedback from the applicant.
Well, and that segues into the comments that we've had over the years, that often it takes more than one measure to be effective. Maybe it's not the fault of the measure, maybe it's another measure, something different should be considered by that neighborhood, or, perhaps as simple as painting or planting trees or something. So it's going to be interesting to see how this moves forward.
Well, and that's an interesting thing that you bring up, because one of the first locations that we have, which is likely to get funded in the near term, is on a one-block stretch of Northwest 36th Street. At one end of the block, they've got like what we'd consider almost like a center median, not like a mini roundabout, it's more elongated. And at the other end of the block, there's always stop control. And they're seeking a speed hump in the middle of the block. So they will have always stop at one end, a speed hump, and then basically a roundabout type situation at the other end.
Slow down. Yeah, slow down, which is what we need everybody to do. Okay. Anybody else? Anything? Okay, Captain, anything for us, sir?
Oh, just real quick, I know Commissioner Littlefield had brought forward an extra patrol request from someone for Northwest 63rd and May. The motors officers went out there. They didn't see a bunch of infractions. They spent a total of 7 hours out there. They only saw 2 people not stop for the red light. They did issue citations, but it may just be the timing of it. But
I hope that citizen is listening. And it's also kind of fascinating when there is an officer's vehicle parked at a major intersection, how the inventory of people running those red lights kind of tends to go down a little bit, isn't it?
Very good. Thank you for your help on that, Captain. Yep. Okay, Counselor, anything? Last minute things?
No, sir.
Okay, and thank you for your counsel today, Counselor.
Pleasure.
Staff, anything last thing?
Nothing else.
Okay, anybody else have any business? Okay, we're adjourned.